from hearing the term user experience and researching what that means and what that is, I followed that into the startup world. In Seattle, I worked for a large startup who had an established Agile Scrum team already, and they were just figuring out how to put design into it. And so I spent a year figuring that out and got really familiar with working with an Agile Scrum team. From there, I moved to San Francisco. I spent a year at TalkBox, where I learned a lot about user testing. And then I went to TaskRabbit for a couple years, where I learned a whole lot about the test and iterate cycle and moving really fast and quickly. And so then I ended up at True&Co about a month ago. And so kind of what I'm going to talk about here is you're a designer at a startup, kind of maybe just getting started. The startup is already rolling. You know, there's a product. It has users, and they're like, okay, we need a designer. That's kind of where I come in. That's where I've been in the last three or four jobs. So you come in, and probably the reason they've hired you is, oh my God, we need all these features that we need to design. But they're also, maybe it's unspoken, but they're looking for this design thinking thing that's kind of the buzzword, but we don't really know what it means exactly. And hopefully, if you're anything like me, they're looking for something like design leadership. And the other kind of unspoken thing sometimes is you are supposed to be the user advocate. And so I've come up with 4 basic ways to do all of those things. And some of it seems pretty obvious, and some of it is like, which one do you do first? It's really all of these things. So number 1, observe some users. Number 2, get to know your metrics. Number 3, befriend your support team. And number 4, run some A/B tests. So number 1, observe some users. It seems really obvious, but I don't know how many people I've seen are like, you know, it's kind of like brushing your teeth and flossing. I know I'm supposed to floss every day, but I don't actually do it. I know I'm supposed to, and it's really good. So just do it. Like, it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be super formal. Watch your friends doing it, especially if you have a social app. That's a really good way to learn. Watch some people, if you want to, bring them in and have some interviews and be real formal about it, or just go out to a cafe and watch some people who say, here's my laptop, will you use this site? Or set up some remote usability testing. And that's actually what I've been learning about in my latest job. It's super fun. So I've been using userlytics.com. I think usertesting.com is also somewhere. There's probably a billion of them. Basically, the nice thing about user testing remotely is you sit there, you write your scenario, kind of leave it nice and open. They record themselves using your site. There's a webcam and a screen sharing dealio. And you can choose your demographics, which is pretty great for me because I work at a company that sells bras to women, so I can test only women. And then you can add some follow-up questions. You can add a survey at the end. It's pretty great. And then you do that. You set it out into the wild. I actually did this yesterday, and I got 2 emails while I was sitting here that 2 of my test results have just come in. And, you know, I've been in meetings all day, so I haven't had to actually sit there and recruit users and do all those things. So it's great. What's really important, I think, with this is getting the scenario right. And I like to just kind of leave it open, especially when I'm first starting a job. I'm getting a baseline. So here's the one that I used kind of. A friend tells you about trueandco.com, a lingerie site that helps you find great fitting bras without having to get a fitting in a department store. You decide to check it out. Record your thoughts as you go through the site. Now you might want to get a little bit more specific, like go through the shopping experience or whatever it is that you need them to do, but try not to be like, go to this page and click on this button and fill out this form. Just leave it open and record exactly what they're going to do. Get a really nice organic experience or a recording of their experience. The other really awesome thing that I'm learning about remote usability testing is you can download those videos, and then I just take it into iMovie or QuickTime or whatever, and you just snippet out the little, like you'll find these little aha moments, and you can share them to relevant team members. So nobody's going to sit through a 15-minute usability testing video. You're going to have to do that. But when you want to talk to your developer about this feature that was broken, you show them this little 30-second clip, and they're like, oh. And then they get the aha moment. It's great. Or you can share it in the relevant project folder. So the next time we're working on feature X, you've got this little video of somebody using it. And hopefully you have 3 or 4, and it's pretty cool. OK, moving on to number 2, getting familiar with your metrics. I think everybody in the company is probably at this point looking at metrics all of the time. It's pretty common. We're all pretty data-driven. The point I want to make is that as a designer, what we're looking for are the metrics that help you get inside your user's head. So trying to figure out what your user is doing and why they're the user behavior is driving the metrics in that way. So you're going to be looking at a little bit different metrics than your CEO or your marketing team. And I'm super in the world right now of conversion funnels and things like device and browser share. Those kinds of things are really helping me understand my users right now. So here's an example of a conversion funnel. So we start with thinking about where these people are coming from before they hit your site. So people hitting the home page are probably coming from PR or referrals, they're direct traffic, and then they click this Get Started button, and then they go through all the steps to get into your super awesome stuff. And then you record how many of the people coming from that source are clicking that button, and it might be different than the people who are coming from SEO, a Google search, your SEM paid campaign, hitting a landing page and clicking Get Started. So it's actually kind of interesting and useful to understand the differences between those two metrics. And then you follow it all the way through and you see who's getting through to your awesome stuff. So I came up with this brilliant theory about conversion, and then I was like, wait a minute, there's no unique ideas. I'm going to Google this. And yeah, this is already totally a thing. It's actually like really complicated, and they say like conversion equals 4m minus 3v2, I don't know. So I like to just kind of boil it down to this. Conversion is what you want your users to do. Motivation is how much they want your awesome stuff, which you can sort of drive through persuasive content on your site and incentive, like give them 20% off to click the button or whatever, and being really clear about what it is that you're actually offering. And then the friction, how hard it is to get. The usability of your site can be friction, clutter on your site can be friction, or their anxiety about giving you the information that you want. And then the other thing that I like to do about these conversion metrics is look at the funnel shapes. And I don't really care too much about the numbers exactly. I'm just kind of looking for proportions and shapes. So in the first one here, you might be getting like 80% of people to step 2 and 80% of people to step 3. And then you have like a really huge drop off at step 4 because you've asked them to submit their email address. And so those kinds of shapes can start to give you interesting theories that you come up with about why this is happening that you can then test later. So if you have one that's like a really big bar and then a huge drop off after that first step and then it's flat, generally the theory that might come up is, okay, they clicked that button thinking that it was something completely different and then they just went away. But everybody else who kind of got it went through. And so you're kind of starting to get these theories from the shapes of the funnels about what's going on and what you need to fix. Another thing that's really great, I've been using Mixpanel for funnel conversion stuff because that's what they're basically designed to do. Like, they're really good at it. You can do it in Google Analytics and everything else as well, but Mixpanel does a really nice device breakdown step, or you can break down by all sorts of properties. But here's one example where we were getting a lot of drop off on one step. And you look at the numbers at the top, it's like, I don't know, 98%, 72%, 35%, and those are just kind of the aggregate sum of all of the people that are getting through there. But if you look at it by device, you can kind of see, okay, everyone on desktop was getting through, everyone on iPad was getting through, everyone on iPhone was getting through, until you look at step 3, the numbers are comparable until you get to step 3 and the iPhone has just completely dropped. Android has completely dropped, Windows has completely dropped. Desktop and iPad users are still getting through. So there's something wrong with the layout of that page on phone, you know? If you hadn't broken it down by device, you would be like, oh yeah, 35% of our users get to that step, moving on. Okay, so I also like to watch conversion metrics over time. It's really interesting. Here, the one on the left is sort of your conversion rate. As a startup, it goes way up and down all the time. It just goes like crazy. You might see a big spike when you're featured on Oprah, and you might see a big drop when your site was really slow or broken. Like, this happens all the time. It's really interesting to look at those things and just kind of get a feeling for what's going on. The one on the bottom here is about looking for patterns. And so sometimes you can see, if you map it over time, you get this kind of hilly situation. And if you look at those might be weekends, or those might be the middle of the week, and you can see that traffic or conversion is better during weekends or evenings, or it depends on your product and your particular user group, but that tells you a lot about what these people are doing. And then of course the really important one is being able to measure how that thing that you released improved the thing you were trying to improve. So you like those. Those are really good. OK, so this is one that I've kind of come up with. Befriend your customer support team. They're awesome. So they're people who are on the phone with your users day in and day out all the time. Now, they can tell you stuff like, oh, we're getting lots of calls about the sign-up form or whatever. And they might even let you sit in on a few calls, which is actually really cool because it gives you the empathy that you need to befriend your customer support team in addition to actually experiencing what they experience. So keep in mind that they are in problem-solving mode all the time. Their urgency is like, right now, right now, right now, I'm going to solve this problem. And then as soon as they get off the phone with the person, they're like, OK, moving on. And it's the next thing, right? Your problem-solving frame of mind is, how can I prevent these problems from happening in the future? And so you're coming from a totally different situation. Just keep that in mind when talking to them, because to them, everything is urgent and right now. And yours is, because you've gotten familiar with your metrics, you can kind of understand how big of a problem this is compared to that thing and all that. So one thing that's really great, this is the designer in the black turtleneck and the glasses, talking to the customer support person. So you can talk to them about potential problems and potential solutions that you are designing. And they can be like, yeah, that should help because they've been in the heads of their users and they understand how these people are going to behave. So it's another input that you can use when talking about these things. And then another thing that you can check up on is when you do release a fix for a problem that you guys have talked about, you can be like, hey, are you still getting a lot of calls about that thing? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, you're right. They've gone away. Cool. And then in return, this is kind of a symbiotic relationship. So do your support team a favor and be like, hey, we're rolling out this new feature next week or tomorrow. You don't want them to be blindsided by that. The worst thing for them is to be on the phone with somebody and be like, why is this support form all blah, 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 blah? And they don't know what you're talking about because they've never even heard about that feature, right? That's not cool. So give them a heads up, hey, this thing is happening. You might get some calls, and let me know if you do because I want to know if it's successful or not, right? OK, so number 4. By now you've got some theories about where you've got problems in your conversion funnel, where things are dropping off. You've got some theories from observing your users, and you've got some ideas from your customer support team about problems that they're having. So now you've got a lot of information, and you need to test some stuff. A/B tests should be approached as something to help you learn more about your users. And you may also find that it's a really great way to actually just improve those optimized parts of the funnel. So go ahead and do that. I've been using Optimizely. It's pretty awesome. It's allowing me to test different layouts, different colors, calls to action, all of those things. So you'll set up one homepage that has, your theory that you've created is a simple hero and a call to action will convert better. And then maybe another theory that you have is a lot of calls to actions that appeal to different people all above the fold will convert better. And then you just test them against each other, right? OK, so you're going to be doing a lot of A/B testing. And you have to learn what in the world is variance. I don't get this. It's math. I'm not into math. So I've tried to boil this down to a non-mathematical explanation. Basically, what you're looking for and what you have to understand is that human behavior is such that not everyone is going to respond exactly the same way to a UI design. That's just the way it is. Variance and statistical significance are the mathematical ways to try and figure out, yes, we can say conclusively, this UI design is actually performing better than this other one, despite all of the randomness that humans do. So this generally, it takes a lot of people repeating it over and over and over, and it generally takes a lot of time. No need to know the math, just Google a statistical significance calculator and use it. So you plug in how many visitors, how many converted in each variation, and it will tell you, yes, it's 90% statistically significant. You can decide in your organization what's acceptable. It could be 80%. You're trying to move really quickly, so maybe you're willing to take some compromises there, but know for a fact whether or not it's variance, people going crazy, or statistically significant. So variance looks like this stuff over here on the left. This is a representation of a graph of a A/B test in Optimizely. And in this case, you put the results out there and you got some variance, you ignore that part. Always ignore day 1 of the test, doesn't matter. And then it starts to kind of converge. And the results are maybe switching places a little bit, nothing's really happening. And sometimes I've seen the statistical significance of it get less as the sample size is growing. You're a startup, you have to move fast. At a certain point, you just call it and be like, you know, version A and version B are not different enough, or the things that we're testing aren't making enough of a difference. So you're testing a theory that version A would convert better or version B would convert better. You actually learn something from this. It's that no, neither of those theories made any difference whatsoever on conversion. So that's something. All right, so that's it. So you've observed some users using your product. You've gotten to know your metrics intimately, inside and out. You've befriended your support team, and you've run some A/B tests. You're not done. You have to do this over and over and over and over. I set up the remote usability test to do at least 3 a month, so if I just get completely crazy busy and forget what's going on, those tests are at least happening once a month. I'm totally familiar with our metrics, and I make myself print out our funnel every week and just like tape it on the wall so that everybody walks by it and sees it. Befriending your support team, just put something on the calendar. I do it every week right now because I just started a new job and I'm getting to know them. Maybe you only need it every couple of weeks, but you definitely need to be like, that door is open. We're going to talk to each other all the time. And then run some A/B tests, just always do it. It's super illuminating. Even if you don't make a big difference in the conversion, you know, like I said, even doing that teaches you something about your theories. So it's pretty cool. And that's awesome.
I have a question and a recommendation for my fellow designers. So the recommendation is, if you're interested in user acquisition, there's something called Flurry. Mixpanel is really good for like the actual funnel once they get to your site, but if you're also interested in like seeing how they're getting your site, etc. And my question is, you talked about having a good relationship with your support team. That's something we do at Discuss, and they have ways to track how many requests are coming in so that we know what we need to focus on, what's most important. Do you have any methods for that?
Right. I brought up the kind of idea that the difference of our frame of mind. The customer support team is always just kind of in the now, in the present, and they're like, this is urgent right now. That does become a problem. If they're not tracking, they just kind of have this gut intuition feel. It's like, we're getting a lot of calls about this and not as many calls about that, and that's not helpful. And so over time, as you're developing this relationship, you can kind of get them to start tracking that data, but it's really, really hard for them. It's not their mode of operation. And I think developing that empathy for them and that understanding of how they work is actually really helpful to understand that. Like, you can't expect them to be in both worlds. So it is really hard. It's much better if they're using something like Zendesk, or you know, they can track the tickets, but the phone calls coming in has always been this kind of amorphous, I don't know. It definitely, after a couple of years of doing this at TaskRabbit, they've started logging the data a little bit more and using, I think what they were using is good data. But not everything gets caught. And it's definitely, what is your gut feel on this and that? And then you have to back it up with data. That's kind of more on you than on them.
Thank you. It's something I wanted to mention, and it hit home when you had your one slide about, what was it, conversion, motivation, less friction?
Yes.
Where I'm at a gaming company, Omid is too, and one thing that's quite weird is that while satisfaction might increase with less friction, satisfaction doesn't necessarily equal people spending or your product being more successful,
Sure.
which is kind of weird as a UX designer, because you're always advocating for the clearest experience, the most understandable experience, but sometimes actually building in friction is a motivation for people to spend money, especially in the game.
Yeah, I think that's true, actually. It's definitely weird, and it's definitely a balance. So the company that I work for, True&Co, we have this very high friction onboarding flow right now. And you click get started and you go through this quiz that determines your bra size, basically. And so you have to answer these really personal questions about your body shape and size and how things fit. And you know, that's the first thing that we're asking for, and then asking them for their email address before they can even get into the shop. And before I worked there, apparently there was sort of an experiment with the holidays and Christmas where people could go in and pick out sleepwear and things like that for other people as gifts and not have to go through that conversion funnel. And it actually was less productive for the business overall. Purchase conversions were not as high and revenue was not as high, and even just getting people through that initial flow so that you can have their email address and tap into that with your marketing emails throughout their life cycle, that can kind of be something that you weigh in deciding which is more valuable, getting them right into the site and right into the shop and then hopefully they shop, or actually building a customer experience that, yeah, you lose a few people because the conversion funnel, it has a lot of friction in it, but those people who make it through may actually be more motivated and more valuable for you.
Yeah, I want to say that, again, same company, same industry. I think your CS, make friends with CS is spot on. And I also, just to add, for anyone else who it applies to, I think community as well is equally as important. And for me, it's been invaluable getting close to CS and community because they're, like you said, on the front lines. So
Yep.
I just want to say that resonated with me.
Definitely, that's awesome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
That was great.